What's going on, everyone? Welcome back. Today we've got another NFL mock draft for you guys, and this one is special post-free agency, including trades, a ton of major changes, so make sure to check it out. Let us know what you think in the comment section, whether you agree, disagree. If you like the video, hit that like button, subscribe. Also, check us out online at alldaypigskin.com. Sign up for our free newsletter there and give us a follow on Twitter at alldaypigskin to continue interacting with us there, shooting us your questions there as well. But for now, let's get right into it. With the first pick overall, the Jacksonville Jaguars, to nobody's surprise, select quarterback Trevor Lawrence. We're not going to spend too much time on this pick. This is the most obvious pick in the entire draft. This pick was a slam dunk before the 2020 season was over. The Jaguars need a face of the franchise. The best way to do that, get a franchise quarterback. Trevor Lawrence checks all the boxes. He is a generational talent. He is the number one overall quarterback prospect in this entire draft class. The Jaguars are going with Lawrence at 1. At number 2, the New York Jets select quarterback Zach Wilson. And at this point in time, it seems like a lot more people have gotten on board with the idea of the Jets going a quarterback here, aka the Sam Darnold era in New York is over. But we've done several mock drafts up until this point, and every single time we've mocked Zach Wilson, and wouldn't you know it, that seems to be the consensus across circles right now as well. So good to see that we were kind of on par with that selection even a couple months prior. Wilson is shaping up to be that number 2 quarterback prospect, and Sam Darnold likely on the way out, new coaching staff. That's just the way it goes, especially with a franchise that's been underachieving in a big market for several years. You need to kickstart things. Wilson does exactly that. Next, to number 3, the San Francisco 49ers select quarterback Trey Lance. And obviously, the reason the 49ers are selecting here is because of their blockbuster trade with the Miami Dolphins, where they swapped first-round picks, but also sent 2 future first-rounders and a third-round pick as well to Miami. Steep price to pay, but that's what happens when you move up 9 spots with the intention of selecting a franchise quarterback. And speaking of that quarterback, the question becomes, which one will it be? And right now, the consensus is it'll either be Trey Lance or Mac Jones. And yes, Mac Jones has gone up draft boards like crazy, but it happens every single year with a quarterback prospect. This year, it is Mac Jones. But let's not forget that the 49ers have been linked to Trey Lance long before they executed this trade. And they've pretty much known that Lawrence and Wilson are going to be the top 2 picks. So this ensures they can get their guy in Lance at number 3. I firmly believe that this is the direction the 49ers are going. And honestly, it makes sense. Lance has potentially the highest ceiling out of any quarterback in this entire draft. Mac Jones might be a little bit safer, but you don't make this type of move to go safe. You make this type of move to go big time, big ceiling type of play, and that's exactly what the 49ers do here by landing Trey Lance. And number 4, the Denver Broncos are on the clock as they trade up with the Atlanta Falcons in order to select quarterback Justin Fields. And first things first, in order to make this trade happen, the Broncos are sending a future first-rounder along with their third-rounder this year to Atlanta to move up 5 spots. In all honesty, a deal somewhat similar to what the 49ers and the Dolphins pulled off. And if that deal made sense to you, then so should this one, because the Broncos are pretty much doing the exact same thing that the 49ers are, not moving up as much, but looking for a long-term answer at the quarterback position. There's a reason why the Denver Broncos were in the Deshaun Watson sweepstakes before all of his off-the-field issues came to light. And that means that they aren't satisfied with what Drew Lock has presented them so far. Maybe they'll give him one last chance for a short stint this season, but it's a position that needs to be addressed. And Fields checks, funny enough, a lot of boxes that Deshaun Watson would have. He's a dual threat quarterback. He can get it done with his legs, and he has a huge arm. This would be a cheaper way to land that type of quarterback as well. So for that reason, the Broncos and someone like Justin Fields makes a lot of sense. At number 5, the Cincinnati Bengals select offensive lineman Penei Sewell. And this is a dream scenario for the Bengals, and one that's likely to take place on draft day because we know for a fact the first couple of picks will be quarterback, and regardless of what happens at number 4, well, the Bengals will have great choices here at number 5, whether that is offensive lineman or maybe a wide receiver like Ja'Marr Chase to reunite him with Joe Burrow, or even tight end like Kyle Pitts to give the Bengals a true number 1 target at that position. At the end of the day, however, we're going with our gut here, and we've been mocking an offensive lineman to the Bengals since day one, and that is with good reason. Joe Burrow is coming off a serious injury, and if the Bengals want to protect their investment in Joe Burrow and actually have a future franchise quarterback, they need to address the offensive line so that Joe Burrow isn't running for his life and taking unnecessary hits every single season. This is a great way to do so. Even though we really like Rashawn, Slater, Penei Sewell seems to be the guy that's being linked to the Cincinnati Bengals the most. So for that reason, we're not going to get too crazy. And if you're thinking about the other skill positions here, wide receiver, tight end, the logic being why the Bengals go offensive lineman, there's just a big drop off at the offensive lineman position compared to the uber deep class in terms of pass catchers when you look at the first and second round. So for that reason, Sewell gets the nod here. At number 6, the Miami Dolphins select wide receiver Ja'Marr Chase. And obviously the Dolphins are picking here because after trading with the San Francisco 49ers, they then decided to trade back up into the top 10, swapping picks with the Philadelphia Eagles, also giving them a future first rounder because presumably they want to land a top tier day one starter at either wide receiver or tight end, probably wide receiver because they do have Mike Gesicki. So the question here becomes, is it Devonta Smith or Ja'Marr Chase? And if we exclude the connection between Tua and Alabama wide receivers, then I have to say Ja'Marr Chase is the clear-cut number 1 wide receiver in this draft class. He put any doubts of that to rest after his pro day. And we do believe that ultimately at the end of the day, even though there is the connection between Tua and those Alabama wide receivers, the Dolphins are just going to go best wide receiver available. And for us, that is Ja'Marr Chase. At number 7, the New York Giants are on the clock as they trade up with the Detroit Lions, swapping first-round picks and sending them their second rounder this year to move up 4 spots and pick offensive lineman Rashawn Slater. And if the Giants want to address the offensive line, which after free agency, offensively speaking, is their biggest hole that's still left, they're more than likely going to have to move up because right before them, if they stay put at number 11, the Dallas Cowboys at number 10, a division rival, also have a big need along the offensive line. So that's why the Giants pay the price here to move up a couple of spots. Rashawn Slater is an absolute stud. Great value here. He could very well go number 5 to the Cincinnati Bengals. In our eyes, he's actually the top offensive lineman in this draft class. He has incredible flexibility everywhere along the offensive line. And after investing big time in free agency in terms of surrounding Daniel Jones with weapons, the Giants complete that puzzle here by giving him the protection he needs and really pushing all their chips in the middle of the table if Daniel Jones is the guy. This is the exact type of move that will show us the answer to that question. At number 8, the Carolina Panthers select quarterback Mac Jones. And we said it ever since our first mock draft. If the Panthers didn't land someone via trade and free agency, then this pick is a locked and loaded quarterback selection. Look, it's no secret that the Panthers tried to get an upgrade at the quarterback position. They narrowly missed out on Matthew Stafford. They were in discussion about Deshaun Watson. That didn't work out. So instead, what you do here is you look to the draft and you look at Mac Jones. It's unlikely the Panthers would be able to trade up with someone like maybe the Atlanta Falcons at number 4, divisional rivals. So instead, the Panthers stay put here. They stay patient, and Mac Jones just naturally falls to them. Now, a couple of months ago, it would have been crazy to see Mac Jones as a top 10 pick, but he has been skyrocketing up draft boards. A lot of quarterback needy teams. It happens every single season. It might not be the best value pick, and it's probably not but quarterback is the one exception to that rule. When you need a quarterback and when you feel like that next best quarterback won't be available to you with your next selection, which obviously won't be the case with the Panthers in the second round, you potentially reach on that position in that player. And that's what happens here with the Panthers and Mac Jones. He will be their long-term, hopefully, solution at the quarterback position. At number 9, the Atlanta Falcons are on the clock after having traded down with the Denver Broncos, and here select tight end Kyle Pitts. And in all honesty, the Falcons are the biggest wild card in the NFL draft. The draft begins with them at pick number 4. Will they trade down? Will they stay put? That's the question that everybody is trying to answer. Right now in this mock, we have them trading down because, first and foremost, their recent restructure of Matt Ryan's contract makes it very unlikely that whoever they select, if it's a quarterback, is going to play at all the first 2 seasons. Yes, they could pull a Jordan Love, an Aaron Rodgers, or Mahomes, and an Alex Smith, but the chances of that got a lot less likely. So instead, what we have them do here is get some draft capital and still get the guy that we would have paired to them at number 4 here in Kyle Pitts at number 9. This means they're one of the biggest winners if this happens in the first round. I love this move for the Falcons. Yes, they just traded for Hayden Hurst last season, but he's not on the same level as Kyle Pitts, who, don't be fooled by the tight end designation. The guy can play the wide receiver position. You can make the argument that he is the second best pass catcher right behind Jamar Chase, and that the separation isn't all that much. He killed it during his pro day. Also, Julio Jones not getting any younger, so Kyle Pitts could very well be a much needed weapon in the repertoire for the Falcons offensively. Love this pick for Atlanta. At number 10, the Dallas Cowboys select cornerback Jaycee Horn. And by all accounts, this pick will either be an offensive lineman or a cornerback for the Cowboys. And in all of our mock drafts up until now, we've actually had an offensive lineman to the Dallas Cowboys. But in this scenario, we did have the New York Giants specifically trading up in front of the Cowboys to select Rashawn Slater. And if that happens, well, it's very possible that the Dallas Cowboys pivot a little bit because, yes, offensive line is an area of need, but maybe they view the top 2 offensive linemen and the guys afterwards, a la Darrisaw or Alijah Vera-Tucker, as having a bigger gap than what we view them as. So for that reason, cornerback is the selection here. Likely, it will be between Jaycee Horn or Patrick Surtain. Maybe a couple of weeks ago, Caleb Farley was in that conversation, but he's a little bit nicked up, so he will drop down the draft board. And Horn absolutely killed it, an athletic freak during his pro day. I do think that could give him the edge over Patrick Surtain, and it would not surprise me one bit if Jaycee Horn is the first defensive player selected in April's draft. At number 11, the Detroit Lions are back on the clock after having traded down and now select wide receiver Devonta Smith. And if this actually happens, I would love this move for the Detroit Lions. Simply put, because if they stay put at number 7 and go on the offensive side of the football, it would likely be a wide receiver, which is exactly what they still do here, along with getting draft capital. And they're going to need it because they're a team with a lot of needs. Now, yes, the Lions could also go on the defensive side of the football. That wouldn't shock me one bit. But like we said before, we expected the Detroit Lions to lose a lot of star power at the wide receiver position in free agency. Marvin Jones, Kenny Golladay, that's exactly what happened. And even though they did add, some free agent wide receivers, none of them are on that same level. Devonta Smith will be the number 1 wide receiver day 1 for the Detroit Lions. I really like this pick. Give Jared Goff a target at the wide receiver position so he doesn't have to do it all by himself. At number 12, the Philadelphia Eagles select wide receiver Jaylen Waddle. And the move that the Eagles made with the Miami Dolphins to trade back to number 12 is one that I actually do like for the Philadelphia Eagles, picking up a first rounder in the future. And ultimately, the biggest takeaway is that they're saying, okay, Jalen Hurts will be the guy, at least for the short term. So now we can turn our attention to building around him, a la what the New York Giants did in free agency with Daniel Jones. And Jaylen Waddle definitely does that. He's that next best available wide receiver. The Philadelphia Eagles need to upgrade that wide receiver position. Other than Jalen Reagor, they don't have a lot of talented, young, high upside players there. So Jalen Waddle will immediately be that. I do think potentially you could see a linebacker go here, someone like a Parsons. But again, some of those off the field issues could potentially have him sliding down just a little bit further. But for now, Jalen Waddle gets the edge over some other positional areas of need. At number 13, the LA Chargers select offensive lineman Christian Darrisaw. And I absolutely loved what the Chargers did in free agency. All teams with a young, promising quarterback should take notes. Once you find that potential franchise quarterback, then you go and upgrade the offensive line like your life depends on it, because you need to protect that investment. We've seen it with too many guys. Andrew Luck, Joe Burrow. You don't want your future to get jeopardized. You don't want Herbert to get injured. That's why you paid a lot of money, even it was to a center in Corey Linsley, but it was well-deserved because the center is going to anchor your offensive line. And now, in the blink of an eye, if you add Darrisaw, the Chargers could go to one of the better offensive lines in the NFL. I would love what that could do for Justin Herbert. Also for the rushing attack, opening up holes for the extremely talented Austin Eckler. And honestly, I've had offensive line paired to the Chargers for a while, and with good reason, because this is how you build a team offensively once you find that franchise quarterback. This would be a pairing that would give me an A grade for the Chargers in the first round. At number 14, the Minnesota Vikings select offensive lineman Alijah Vera-Tucker. And Tucker is someone that I'm very high on. I think he's a similar type of prospect like a Rashawn Slater, someone that offers a lot of flexibility. So for a team in the Vikings that have needs, whether it be a tackle or guard, they're really getting a gold mine of a pick here in Tucker that you can shift anywhere, especially if there's injuries, or just kind of find that best fit for him. And let's be honest, what the Minnesota Vikings do best is rush the football with Dalvin Cook and allow Kirk Cousins to be a game manager. If they want to continue to do that, then they need to upgrade the offensive line, which did take some hits during free agency. So Alijah Vera-Tucker here makes a lot of sense. At number 15, the New England Patriots select linebacker Micah Parsons. And the Patriots are always one of these extremely interesting teams in terms of what they'll do in the draft. Well, let's look at free agency first, because the Patriots were one of the biggest spenders there. First and foremost, they brought back Cam Newton for another year. So that probably tells you that at least right now, they're okay at the quarterback position. And the way that this draft has played out, they're definitely out of the quarterback running in the first round. Also, they upgraded the offensive pieces big time, bringing in both Hunter Henry and Jonnu Smith, along with Aguilar and Bourne. So probably this pick, unless there is a wide receiver that falls, like a Jaylen Waddle, won't be a skill position offensively. So then you go best player available. And Micah Parsons is someone that we've mocked a bunch to the New England Patriots. Yes, there's some off the field concerns, but if there's any team that would take a chance on a player like that and then put him in the right direction, it would be the New England Patriots. I feel like this is a steal for the Patriots. Parsons, talent-wise, is a top 10 selection. And if those potential off-the-field issues get cleared, he very well could be a top 10 pick come April. So right now, I love the value for the Patriots. At number 16, the Arizona Cardinals select cornerback Patrick Surtain. And I've been saying this for a while, but pretty much ever since we knew that Patrick Peterson was leaving Arizona, which is exactly what happened in free agency, well, we've been mocking a replacement of his to the Arizona Cardinals. And here the Cardinals get a great value pick in Patrick Surtain, who could be the first cornerback off the board. I think it'll either be him or Jaycee Horn. And I do believe that one of those two guys will be available to Arizona at number 16. So they are in a great spot there. The defense needs some help, and obviously with Peterson no longer there, they need a replacement. Surtain is younger, he's cheaper, and for that reason, I love this fit for the Arizona Cardinals. At number 17, the Las Vegas Raiders select offensive lineman Teven Jenkins. And right now, the Raiders are the perfect example of how one team's needs could drastically change following free agency, because before this, we continuously had a linebacker mocked to the Raiders. But considering that the Raiders pretty much lost their entire offensive line, which was one of the best in the NFL last season, this pick almost certainly has to be an offensive lineman. If you want Derek Carr to be remotely as impactful as he was last season, then you need to upgrade the offensive line, which is now all of a sudden a weak point on your team, which is bad because defensively, the Raiders still have a lot of needs. They definitely were kind of one of the losers in free agency, I would say, made some moves that didn't make all that sense, bringing in Kenyon Drake, but then the offensive line, not all that great either. You already have Josh Jacobs. So for that reason, the Raiders kind of playing catch up here and going with Jenkins, who could be a guy that's getting some hype right now and potentially that next best offensive lineman. At number 18, the Miami Dolphins select offensive lineman Jalen Mayfield. And after going wide receiver with their first pick, the Dolphins now decide to upgrade the offensive line. And some of you might be saying, well, why did the Dolphins not just select an offensive lineman with their first pick? They did get Will Fuller in free agency. But take notice, Fuller only got a 1-year deal, which tells you that he's probably not in the Dolphins' plans long term. So wide receiver was still an area of need early. So now offensive lineman is that next piece of the puzzle. The Dolphins took a chance on Isaiah Wilson trading for him, but he was cut pretty much a week later, which is absolutely crazy. A guy that was a first-round pick last season just couldn't get it turned around. So obviously the offensive line is a position where the Dolphins want an upgrade there. I think Jalen Mayfield can definitely do that. By a lot of people, he could go earlier than this. So I definitely think this is right around the range where you could expect him to go, and the Dolphins are a logical landing spot. At number 19, the Green Bay Packers are on the clock as they trade up with the Washington football team in order to select wide receiver Rashad Bateman. In order to make this trade happen, the Packers are also sending their second rounder this year to Washington to move up. And yes, we realize the Packers don't usually select wide receivers in the first round, but after their draft last season, where they selected Jordan Love in the first round, we obviously saw that Aaron Rodgers still has a lot left in the tank. Well, maybe the Packers try and appease him a little bit by going with Bateman here. For what it's worth, they did attend Minnesota's Pro Day, and if there's any player that they would select highly from Minnesota, it would likely be Rashad Bateman. But they're going to have to move up in order to do so because he is going up draft boards. He's a big physical type of wide receiver. And a lot of people, including myself, think that he's going to be a dark horse candidate that really outperforms where he is drafted. I love this move for the Packers because they also go one spot ahead of the Chicago Bears, who could potentially be targeting Rashad Bateman as a potential Allen Robinson replacement. So him opposite Davante Adams, I would love that for the Green Bay offense. At number 20, the Chicago Bears select offensive lineman Alex Leatherwood. Now, when it comes to the Bears, we've been saying for forever that they need to address the quarterback position. Well, for what it's worth, they did add a quarterback in free agency, but it was Andy Dalton. So we know that that's not the long-term answer. Normally, we would pair the Bears with Mac Jones here, but if the Bears stay put at number 20, there's no chance that Mac Jones will be available. And honestly, right now, I don't think that the Bears would be willing to pay the price that would be needed to move up to one of those top 10 picks and select Mac Jones there. So for that reason, well, they're just going with the next biggest area of need, and that's offensive linemen. They need to address that position if they want to give their team a chance, whoever their long-term quarterback is, and, give them a chance this season with Andy Dalton. So Leatherwood is that next best available offensive lineman for us. They need to protect the quarterback. They need to open up holes for David Montgomery. So Leatherwood makes a lot of sense. At number 21, the Indianapolis Colts select wide receiver Rondale Moore. And for the longest period of time, this pick has been an offensive lineman. And I'm definitely not ruling that out here. It could very well happen. It's ultimately going to come down to whether there's an offensive lineman run beforehand and how the Colts feel about the prospects that are left over. Worth mentioning is that in free agency, the Colts did add some offensive linemen, but we don't really know if those guys can be long-term Costanza replacements. That's why, again, we're leaving the door open for a lineman here. But in the meantime, if this pick isn't an offensive lineman, wide receiver is probably going to be the way that the Colts go, because T.Y. Hilton, yes, he did return, but he's not getting any younger, and you need to replace him long-term. Get a reliable target to see if Carson Wentz can be the guy, surround him with talent. So Rondale Moore makes a lot of sense. He had a really nice pro day. He's someone else at the wide receiver position that's trending upwards, and this could be right around the range where he goes off the board. At number 22, the Tennessee Titans select cornerback Greg Newsome. And the Titans were a team that I consistently had taking a defensive tackle in the first round, specifically Christian Barmore. But for what it's worth, they did sign in free agency Denico Autry. So that does alleviate some of the stress of finding a player at that position. They actually did a decent job addressing the defensive line and the linebacker position in free agency, so that'll be interesting to see how that translates to the first round. But they also did lose Adoree Jackson. So now all of a sudden, going a cornerback is an area of need, and that's what we are electing to do here for the Tennessee Titans. Wide receiver could also be an area where they need to upgrade after losing Corey Davis, but again, that is a very deep position this year, so they could do that in the second round. Greg Newsome could be that next cornerback off the board. Like we said before, Farley's injury could very well have him drop outside of the first round, and Newsome, on the other hand, had a very good pro day. He's trending upwards, and he's a pick here that could potentially replace Adoree Jackson. At number 23, the New York Jets, with their second first-round selection, select defensive end Kwity Paye. And honestly, the Jets could go any number of ways with this second first-round pick. It could be on the offensive line. It could be in the secondary. It could be on the defensive line. So for that reason, we're just going best player available. And right now, that's probably Kwity Paye. You know, he's in the conversation for best or maybe second best defensive end in this draft class. And at this point in time, we've gotten to that sweet spot where defensive end is probably going to have a run and at a great value. So I do think the Jets are getting a very nice pick here. Again, the only position that probably won't be selected here is wide receiver, considering they did sign Corey Davis in free agency. But otherwise, every other position is on the board, including defensive end here, which is what they go with in Paye. At number 24, the Pittsburgh Steelers select offensive lineman Samuel Cosmi. And even though free agency changed a lot of team needs, the Pittsburgh Steelers, that was not the case for, because we are continuing to pair them with an offensive lineman. This hasn't changed pretty much since our first mock draft. The losing of Pouncey Villanueva, that hurts a lot. Big Ben, he's not getting any younger. That rushing attack, it needs holes to be opened up. So offensive lineman almost has to be the pick here. Now, maybe the Steelers try to trade up and get a top tier guy, or maybe they try to trade down and get an offensive lineman toward the end of the first round and then get more draft capital. You know, it's very possible, but I think either way, the Steelers' first pick will be on the offensive line, and Cosmi is that next best available offensive lineman. It all comes down to how, you know, the Steelers rank these offensive line prospects and what happens in front of them. But at the end of the day, I do think Cosmi is right around, you know, a late first round selection, early second round selection. So not bad for the Pittsburgh Steelers. At number 25, the Jacksonville Jaguars select defensive end Jalen Phillips. And similar to what the New York Jets did in terms of their second first round selection and just going best player available, that's what the Jaguars are doing, because in reality, they could go a number of different directions here. Offensive lineman, maybe even wide receiver. They could go defensive line or secondary. And when that's the case, you go best player available. You already got Trevor Lawrence. You added Marvin Jones in free agency. And Jalen Phillips, for what it's worth, a lot of people think him or Kwity Paye might be the best defensive ends in this draft class. So at this point in time, this is a decent value pick for the Jaguars. You can never have enough edge rushers. and never have enough guys getting after the quarterback. That's the idea here. I wouldn't be shocked if maybe the Jaguars decide to trade down. Keep an eye out for that. But right now in this mock draft, we have them going with Jaelan Phillips. At number 26, the Cleveland Browns select defensive tackle Christian Barmore. And I continue to think that the first pick for the Cleveland Browns will be on the defensive line, regardless of what happened in free agency. And here specifically, either defensive tackle or defensive end. The reason I'm going Barmore is because right now, I think he might be the best value pick by a long shot. He could very well be a pick in the teens if someone trades up for him. That's the type of talent that he has. And at the end of the day, you're still going to free up space by adding Barmore next to Myles Garrett, potentially get some double teams there as well and just blow up the other side of the defensive line and offensive line matchups. So I really do like this move for the Cleveland Browns. Their offense is in good shape, so this pick more than likely will be on the defensive side of the football. At number 27, the Baltimore Ravens select wide receiver Elijah Moore. And yes, I realize the Ravens added Sammy Watkins in free agency, but guess what? That doesn't mean a damn thing. First and foremost, that deal that Watkins got was only on a 1-year basis. Also, look, the last couple of years, Sammy Watkins has severely underwhelmed, and that was with Patrick Mahomes throwing him the football. Also, he struggled to stay healthy. So the point being is the Ravens still need a long-term answer at the wide receiver position. Marquise Brown has underwhelmed as well. That is a problem. And Elijah Moore has been skyrocketing up draft boards, a slot type of wide receiver. But hey, that could help, Lamar Jackson in terms of having another target that he could quickly get the ball out to. Elijah Moore definitely fits the bill. You need to surround Lamar Jackson with talent at the wide receiver position. He can't just continue to do it with his legs. At some point in time, he's going to take one hit too many. So that's what this pick does. It ensures some weapons for Lamar Jackson and some consistency, hopefully, at the wide receiver position. At number 28, the New Orleans Saints select linebacker Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. And the Saints, well, we definitely saw them take a lot of hits defensively due to their cap situation, cutting a lot of stalwart players and then just not re-signing some to begin with. So you need to replenish that defense with some cheap and young talent. That's exactly what this pick does. I think Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah is someone that could go a lot earlier, but there's just not a lot of teams that necessarily need linebacker help before the New Orleans Saints. So they kind of benefit here. A really nice value pick. They've been looking for a starting type of linebacker that can kind of captain that defense for a while. I really like the selection of JOK to the New Orleans Saints. At number 29, the Washington football team is back on the clock after having traded down with the Green Bay Packers and now select offensive lineman Liam Eichenberg. And for Washington, they might be in a situation similar to the Chicago Bears in terms of at some point in time, they might want to address the quarterback position in the draft, but it definitely won't be in the first round unless they trade up specifically to do so, because like we've said before, more than likely the top 5 quarterbacks will be gone in the top 10 picks. So with that being the case, go upgrade the offensive line. You added Ryan Fitzpatrick, you added Curtis Samuel. So going quarterback right now or wide receiver, not as big of a need, but getting an offensive lineman to protect your older quarterback and to open up holes for your young, promising running back and Antonio Gibson, that is always helpful. I have Eichenberg as my next best offensive lineman, and he could potentially be a guy that Washington builds around for whenever they do find their future franchise quarterback. At number 30, the Buffalo Bills select defensive end Jayson Oweh. And for the Bills, like we've said before, more than likely their first round selection will be on the defensive side of the football. They did a nice job of replacing guys they lost in free agency, like John Brown with Emmanuel Sanders, for example, and they're set with Josh Allen at quarterback. So now looking at the defensive side of the football, again, this is a team that will likely benefit from some very good value here and options at the edge rusher position. I really like Jayson Oweh. He's someone that will more than likely sneak into the first round, had a really solid pro day, just freaky athletic, And he could very well be, the second or third defensive end off the board, which is kind of what we're projecting at this point in time. It's an area of need for the Buffalo Bills. You can never have enough edge rushers, and they continue to build up that roster and have one of the best teams in the division. At number 31, the Kansas City Chiefs select defensive end Azeez Ojulari. And for the Chiefs, at one point in free agency, I would have thought that this pick would have had to have been an offensive lineman, considering that they lost Fisher and Schwartz. But they did a decent job of replacing them with some other guys. So now you could go back to best player available. Now, I'm still not ruling out an offensive lineman getting a cheaper, younger option. That's still definitely on the table. But at this point in time, I'm just going best player available. To me, that is Ojulari. Before those offensive line moves, I did have the Chiefs going defensive end. So right now, nothing has really changed all that much. I like Ojulari. I think he's probably going to be a top 5 defensive end in terms of where he's drafted in this class. And again, this is right now the end of the first round. It's that sweet spot for loading up on defensive end talent that is kind of just there for the taking. Great value pick, in my opinion, for the Chiefs. At number 32, the Tampa Bay Bucks select defensive end Joseph Ossai. And honestly, I'm at a loss of words when talking about the Bucks because they just had one of the best free agencies, and all they did was just bring back all their free agents somehow. And that's amazing because this is basically the exact same squad that just went and won the Super Bowl. You thought maybe, Barrett would have left, that Sue would have left, that Godwin would have left, that David would have left. Nope. None of that. All those guys are back. So the Bucks could absolutely, truly go any which way with this pick. It could be wide receiver. It could be offensive line. It could be secondary, defensive line, linebacker. I have no idea. All I know is that it probably won't be quarterback just because right now there really isn't worth a quarterback in this point in the first round. So with that being the case, I'm going best available player. I've had Ossai as a guy right around this point in the draft, end of the first, early second. And the defensive line, even though it's intact, well, Jason Pierre-Paul isn't getting any younger. So that's the idea here. Just kind of getting guys that can learn from the veterans and just be players long term and contribute if there's an injury. So whatever the Bucks do, honestly, I love the selection for them. In this case, it is Ossai. So with that, we wrap up our latest mock draft. And as always, let us hear it in the comment section. Did you agree, disagree? What do you want to see your favorite team do? What type of trades do you think we might see on draft day? And what players do you think maybe we have ranked too high, too low? Any types of questions you guys have, we will do our best to answer them. And if you enjoyed, hit that like button, subscribe. Also, give us a follow on Twitter at AllDayPigskin to continue interacting with us there, shooting us your questions. We answer all of them. Also, check us out online at alldaypigskin.com. Sign up for a free newsletter to get access to exclusive content. All the details in the description. But for now, we'll see you guys in future videos.